All right, y'all. All right. Good afternoon, y'all. It is 8:18 p.m. here on the East Coast. It is 78 degrees, sunny outside. Not a cloud in the sky. I see a few out there, not many. But anyways, we have a lot to go over today. You do not want to miss today's show. It is going to be explosive. I know I say that all the time, but today's show, there is no little news into this. Excuse me, I had a burp. I apologize. There is no little news in tonight's breaking news broadcast. So, before we get started, make sure y'all hit that bell button so y'all get notified whenever we come on air. And so we can actually get more push out there in the public, so we can get more exposed, so we can actually get more people in here, so we can actually start pushing the news out that actually means something. Not none of the BS that's going on in the news today. It's ridiculous how much the news stations get paid off. Seriously, it's sickening. But anyways, further ado, let's get to the news.
We have several major stories developing across Russia, Ukraine, and Iran, so let's jump right into it. This morning, Ukraine has issued an order to Belarus that they have 1 week to withdraw their military equipment from Ukraine's northern border, or Ukraine will launch attacks on Belarusian territory to destroy it. And this comes after Zelensky warned that Putin plans to use Belarus to attack Ukraine, and this is obviously a developing story. Meanwhile, Ukraine has launched yet another major attack on Moscow this morning using new high-speed missile drones, causing chaos to erupt as Russian forces fire more man-pad missiles from highways, and flights across the entire region have been canceled. In response, Putin has ordered even more air defense to be deployed around Moscow as Russian officials panic and tell citizens that it's best not to watch the videos of the destruction in Moscow for a so-called happy life. And also in the Middle East, Iran has now closed the Strait of Hormuz yet again and has begun firing at ships in the strait as U.S. officials have gone into a total meltdown as the Iran deal seems to have completely collapsed, with some expecting a possible military escalation. So we have massive news. The Belarus story is huge today, but also the Iran situation is deteriorating very, very quickly, literally as we speak. So let's jump right into our first article, which goes to none other than Nexta. And this right here is clearly our biggest story of the day. Right now, we are seeing a major escalation taking place between Ukraine and Belarus, with Zelensky issuing an ultimatum, a very direct ultimatum, to the dictator inside of Belarus, Lukashenko. And Zelensky is now telling Lukashenko that he is not offended by his words that he's recently stated toward Ukraine, but along the borders with Ukraine, there is equipment that adjusts fire on Ukraine. And get this, Zelensky said, I'm giving a week for it to be withdrawn, otherwise we will do it ourselves. And that is a major threat right there. That is basically, in about 1 week, we might see a war break out between Ukraine and Belarus from the looks of it. So we have some more details about what equipment Zelensky's referring to on the Belarusian border, but the big deal is, though, this is a very concrete timeline right here, exactly 1 week for the Belarusians to withdraw that equipment, or otherwise, according to what's being said right now, at least allegedly, Ukraine will launch an incursion into Belarus to attack that equipment and destroy it on Belarusian territory. So that would be a very, very large escalation to say the least. But jumping into our next story here, we have some more details about this from Anton Gerashenko. And right here we can see that apparently the equipment that Zelensky's referring to are radio repeaters. That's apparently what he's referring to right here. And apparently there's a whole bunch of receivers along the Belarusian border at the northern part of Ukraine that are helping to guide drones from Russia into Ukrainian territory and attack the civilians. That is the allegation as of right now. And also, not to mention, by the way, that Zelensky's been warning about this new intelligence report that's been out there for about a month now, that apparently Russia plans on dragging Lukashenko into the war and the Belarusian forces into it, and the Belarus might launch some sort of incursion into northern Ukraine if Putin gives the order. So that's coming amidst that backdrop, by the way. So obviously, this is becoming very, very ominous, and it sounds like Zelensky is fed up with Lukashenko helping out the Putin regime. So obviously, a very big change. And believe it or not, it actually gets worse than that. And moving into our next post here, this one goes to War Translated, and now we've seen that Belarus has started officially threatening Ukraine directly, saying that it reserves the right to take measures against Ukraine to protect protect its citizens after a bus incident in the Bryansk region. And also, by the way, just to make this clear, the bus incident they're referring to in the Bryansk region, it's not even clear if Ukraine attacked that bus. It's believed to be that's another version of Russian propaganda to do a false flag to drag Belarus into the situation. Also, by the way, Bryansk is not even Belarusian territory, that's Russian territory. So there's a whole bunch of problems with this allegation that Belarus is putting out there, to say the least. Literally a plethora of issues with that story. So obviously it looks like Russian propaganda. But now we're seeing that apparently Belarus is saying it's going to take action itself against Ukraine preemptively over that situation. So I would say at this point, it's looking very likely that Belarus and Ukraine are going to have some sort of confrontation very, very soon. And it looks like it could happen within the week if Belarus does not withdraw that equipment. And I doubt they will. So I think Ukraine might end up doing attacks inside of Belarus over the situation. And it sounds like the order's already been given. Zelensky's saying 1 week. That's what he's currently saying right now, according to reports. So, in 1 week, apparently the attacks will start and commence that we're hearing about in these posts. But moving on from this major story right here, and obviously we're keeping a sharp eye on that one. The Belarus situation is very volatile right now. But moving into our next major story, this one goes to War Translated yet again, and you might be able to tell by looking at this. Right now, Moscow's under yet another major assault, by the way. This is the third major assault on Moscow in just the last couple of days, and as you can see, this is a very big one. This is over 320 attack drones heading toward the Moscow region, as you can see right here in the map, and this is a very serious threat right here. In fact, we've already gotten videos showing the Russians panicking and yet again freaking out less than 10 miles away from the Kremlin, trying to shoot down the incoming Ukrainian drones. So obviously very dire this morning. And moving into our next one here, we have some more details from Woofers. We can see that Russian air defenses were activated in the Moscow Oblast, according to all the Russian back channels, and they're claiming that the air defense was working, but we have some video proving otherwise. And obviously we had an absolute footage fest last night on the stream showing all the Russian air defense failures inside the capital city, and it's happening yet again today. So I legitimately have no idea how Putin is going to stave off these attacks in the future. I have no idea how he's going to do that, because if the air defense in the huge numbers they have in Moscow already is already failing, that's not a good sign. But moving into our next post here, this one also goes to War Translated, because it seems Ukraine has a little surprise up their sleeve today, and also during yesterday's attack as well, of a brand new drone they're currently using on the Moscow region for the first time, and it is the Marak drone. And the reason why this is a very big deal is because this drone right here is a high-speed drone. Now, granted, it's not jet-powered. We do have a video of a jet-powered drone coming up that's also being used in Moscow today, but the Marak is a high-speed propeller-driven drone that goes about 300 kilometers per hour, which is very fast. Also has an 800-kilometer range and a 30-kilogram warhead on board, and we have a video of it going in. And in fact, this appears to be from yesterday's attack on the oil facility that we saw. It appears to show that. But let's take a look at the video and see the Marak being used, not just yesterday in the footage, but also today as well. Let's take a look.
Whoa.
What's that?
I just built a budgeting app in Base 44.
Guys, Nina just built an app.
Impossible.
Nina can't code.
Interesting. Can it generate reports?
I can now.
Nice.
So you're saying we can all build apps now?
Yeah.
I'm on lunch. I gotta make a call.
I'll be right
in my
back.
office. Just built an inventory tracker. Protein calculator. Book sharing app.
A workflow manager that
Tracks who still owes for the group lunch.
Trash duty schedule. Since no one seems to care.
just built a
I just created a goal tracking system.
We built the same thing, didn't we?
Yep.
Can this thing manage content?
Is the SOC compliant?
I want to animate this graph.
Create a party planner.
Profesor de español.
An inter-office dating app.
For dogs. For office dogs. You know what I mean?
And here comes the drone right here on the camera. There it is.
Yes.
And wow, that thing's zoom. There it goes. Oh, and there goes a Russian manpad right there. Look at that. Oh, and there it is. There's the depot, by the way. That's the famous clip right there of the top of that oil tank coming off. That was the Maroc flying over right as the Russians were trying to shoot that down. As you can see, the Russians clearly failed at that. They did not shoot it down, and it went on to its target further away in Moscow. So clearly very hard to shoot down, and that was the infamous clip right there showing the top of the oil tank popping off as well in the midst of that. But moving into our next post here, this one's going to go to Tendar, and we've also gotten another view of a different type of jet drone, possibly the Bars drone that Ukraine also manufactures, also heading into Moscow, apparently near a whole series of cranes at a construction site. So let's take a look at our first video and see what we can determine out of this attack and see the drone itself. Let's take a look at this one. And this is literally perfect. Look, there's a propeller drone back there on the left, and there's that missile drone right there in the front. Look at how much faster that's going than the propeller drone. This is literally perfect for reference, by the way. But there's the thing. Look at it. It's flying like a cruise missile, basically. It looks like the propeller drone hit that crane right there, it looks like. And also, the missile drone just went straight onto its target. So, literally, here it is again. You can see the missile drone going a lot faster than that propeller drone. And it's very interesting, by the way, because I would call this a hybrid weapon. It's basically like a cruise missile mixed with a drone. It's a very strange type of weapon, but it's also very inexpensive compared to a normal cruise missile. So, we believe to be that's the Bars cruise, or cruise drone, as you could call it. But that's what we believe that is right there. But as you can see, the Russians definitely can't get that one. It's moving too fast. But moving into our next post here, this one's also going to go to Jay in Kyiv. And you wouldn't believe it, but again, and once more in this attack that we just saw this morning on Moscow, the Russians have once again deployed their mobile fire groups, like, basically like thugs jumping out of a white van, basically on the side of the highway. And they're now jumping out with man-pad missile launchers yet again today, and they're firing just really rogue missiles all over the city. And also, plot twist, it's really not hitting the drones. It's going and hitting their fuel storage tanks. It's hitting the civilians. It's hitting everything but the drones. So let's take a look at this video. Apparently, the Russian forces are right out here in a active highway, by the way, firing man-pad missiles off right in front of civilians yet again. So let's take a look. So there's the drone, and there's the machine gun fire. See the guy filming this fire that's already happening out here. There goes another one right there. This dude over there, there's a man pad, and it looks like it missed. That's not shocking either, by the way. There's somebody hiding behind a pole right there. But look at this, just chaos out here. This dude's firing a man pad from literally the side of an active highway. You can see a whole bunch of civilians. They're even driving by in the video that we saw like yesterday. So just completely reckless by the Russians yet again. Also, this has not indicated a coordinated response, by the way. This indicates complete chaos. They don't really have good training. And we believe these might be the Kadavarites, actually. So that might also explain why things are going sideways as well, because they screw everything up. So moving on from this, though, and that crazy reckless stuff happening there in Moscow, our next one also goes to Tendar yet again. We've also seen that Putin is now ordering even more air defense systems into Moscow, despite the hundreds that are already there as we speak. And they're now scrambling more air defenses into the area, and obviously now it's just simply a waiting game. Eventually Russia is going to run out of interceptor missiles. That's just obvious at this point. They've got too much air defense there. They're spending way too much of their ammunition on just Moscow alone, and they're leaving the rest of the country of Russia completely wide open while they're trying to protect just the area of Moscow. So let's take a look. We have a view here of apparently one of these missile-based systems in a parking garage or on top of a bridge. Let's take a look. And there you can see it. That appears to be, I'm not sure if that's a Pantsir or what type of Russian air defense that is, but it appears to be some sort of air defense system up there. I can't really identify it, but it's sitting up there. It's obviously got its radar turned on. It's trying to detect incoming drones. It looks like it's sitting on top of maybe a bridge. It looks like they're constructing a bridge as well next to it. So they got it just sitting up there in the middle. I guess they can move that thing around to try to, keep it active, I guess. But that's what's happening right now. Putin's ordering even more air defenses brought into the region, and I don't think the number of air defense systems are going to help. I think the training is the issue at this point. But moving into our next one, this one's going to go to Nexta. We've also gotten some serious cope from the Russian government. The Russian government's clearly having a very hard time defending their capital city, and now the Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, aka the Rat, is now urging Russians not to dwell on the videos of the strikes in Moscow. I'm not making that up, by the way. That's apparently, or at least allegedly, what he's saying currently. Instead, Instead, he suggested they watch the impressive footage of the aftermath of the Russian attacks on Ukrainian cities, which, by the way, shows civilians getting attacked, so I'm not sure how impressive that would be, unless maybe a country is a bunch of possibly war criminals, allegedly. But this is what's going on right now. They're clearly coping, as you can see right here. So, what can you even say about this? I mean, they're literally telling people not to watch the videos of the Capitol getting hit just to avoid the trouble from it. So that's insane to say the least. But moving on from the world-class cope, we're moving into our next post here, which goes to Max26. We've also seen that as a result of this morning's attack on Moscow, that over 130 flights are delayed at Moscow airports across the entire region. 59 planes are unable to land or depart at Sheremetyevo Airport, and also there's several more at Domodedovo and Vnukovo that also cannot take off either or land at the airports. So we believe that the Russians have implemented what's known as the carpet plan, meaning they've grounded all the flights in the area. They're not letting any of them land because obviously there's a huge risk of them running into a drone. So that appears to be what's going on right now. And not to mention, by the way, all the previous cancellations that were already taking place at the Moscow airports because they're running out of jet fuel in the process. All these attacks on Moscow, by the way, are completely taking the focus away from the fact that Russia is literally out of gasoline. They're trying to get it from Asia because they're completely out, and they literally can't even operate most of their aircraft right now because of that reason. So I would say the tide has definitely changed. It went from, Ukraine might be losing the war, now it's gone to, it looks like Russia's about to completely collapse and fall apart like a pound of bricks at this point. So, what can you say about this? It looks like Moscow's struggling. But moving into our next one, this one goes to OSINT Technical. We've also seen that in the midst of the fire and the oil rain inside of Moscow, that apparently now the toxic firefighting foam is now falling down on the civilians as well to add a mixture of cancer rain, as they call it, to the capital. Now, obviously, this is not very good because this is literally toxins galore between the oil raining down on civilians and also now this firefighting foam as well. It's literally unsafe to even come outside in Moscow right now. It's literally dangerous for your health. So let's take a look at the video and let's see what's happening.
With Vistaprint, you can turn your ideas into custom apparel you can't wait to wear and share. So you can introduce your brand before you even say hi. Give your whole team a glow up in professional polos and outerwear. And upload your logo and poof! You've got apparel with print so clear, your brand jumps right off the fabric. Just think it, click it, and print it with Vistaprint. Because with all the colors, sizes, and styles you need, anything's possible. Print your possible with 20% off your first order at Vistaprint.com.
Red Nana is action. Emotion unleashed. Swing first and swing big. It charges into battle. Lightning in your veins. Be relentless. Bring the storm. That's Thor.
So as you can see right there, that is not snow. That is firefighting foam coming from the area of the Moscow refinery that we believe it's coming from. And it literally looks like it's snowing, but it's not snowing. Also, that smoke you see up there, that's oil in those clouds right there. So literally a bad mixture of really bad things that you really don't want to breathe in for the most part. But it looks like some of the Russians are still outside, like the cameraman here, and they're still floating around in the midst of this winter hellscape, as you'd call it. I guess that's the better way to put it. But moving on from this right here, that horror scene, and moving into our next one, this one goes to Jay in Kyiv. We're also seeing that in the midst of the panic, the Moscow authorities are trying to tamp down the panic amongst the civilians, and they're bringing in these concrete boxes that are being called shelters, they're calling them, and these are temporary shelters to try to put civilians in it, so that way they can shelter from the drone attacks. As you can see right here they are lifting them off of the back of trucks, they're putting them on the side of the highways, and I'm not sure if this is mainly protecting against the Ukrainian drone attacks, or maybe this is about getting away from the Russian lunatic forces that are firing manpads right from the highways. Either way you want to put it, this is somewhere for the Russians to hide from the trouble, basically. So that's what they're doing right now. It seems kind of a little bit desperate and also a little bit cheap. But moving into our next one here, this one goes to Fintech's News. And are y'all ready for this? We got some Iran developments today that might knock your socks off, to say the least. We have some shocking developments with the Iran situation, and you wouldn't believe what's happening happen right now. Apparently, the Iranians have now closed the Strait of Hormuz, despite the Memorandum of Understanding opening the Strait of Hormuz and also ending the U.S. blockade. Apparently, believe it or not, I am completely shocked and blown away that Iran has not upheld their end of the bargain. It looks like Iran is also now firing warning shots at ships trying to pass the area, and the Iranians are saying they closed it because of the Israeli action inside of Lebanon. So that is what's being reported right now. We're even getting radio calls being sent out to ships from the IRGC on the coast telling these ships to turn away and get back or they might get fired on. And we have that coming up here in just a second of that radio recording. But this is a big shocking development right here. And they also, just to let you know up front, the U.S. officials are having a complete meltdown today about this. They are blown away that this IRGC regime would somehow back out of the agreement. They're blown away by this. So let's move into our next article here and cover the rest of it. And this one also goes to Flytex News. And right here you can see this is the transcript of the alleged radio call that was being sent out in the Strait of Hormuz by the IRGC forces. They said that since Israel's withdrawal from Lebanon and the complete lifting of the naval blockade and the withdrawal of American forces from the Persian Gulf and the region are among the main conditions of the agreement between the Iran and the United States, the Strait of Hormuz will remain closed until these two conditions are met. All ships are ordered not to approach the Strait of Hormuz for their own safety and health, and any vessel that defies the order will be targeted. Now, I was going to play the radio recording, but it's actually in Farsi, it sounds like, so unfortunately most of us are not going to be able to understand what's being said there. But according to Iranian speakers, this is allegedly what's being said right here in this transcript. So that's not good. It looks like the Iranians are completely collapsing the peace deal talks and also the MOU that was already signed by U.S. and American officials because of the situation in Israel and Lebanon. So, of course, Israel was defending itself from the proxy forces there, and now apparently, according to Iran, they will not even let Israel defend itself against the rocket attacks on their northern territory. So this isn't going well, folks. This is not going good whatsoever, and it seems to be that our analysis that it was a really bad idea to make an agreement with Iran is coming true, and unfortunately, that was easy to see from about 10 miles away, but the U.S. didn't really see that. So moving into our next one here, this one goes to Flytex News yet again, and it looks like Iran's foreign ministry has now put out their terms of secondary surrender to the United States of what they're demanding, or otherwise they're going to put the hurt on the United States forces. And what Iran is currently demanding right now is they want a permanent end to the war in Lebanon. So they're expecting the United States to force Israel not to defend itself, which is obviously unrealistic to say the least. They're also demanding the complete lifting of the U.S. blockade, which, by the way, has already been lifted, and CENTCOM said that yesterday, so I'm not sure what they're talking about there. They're also saying that the U.S. should issue waivers for Iranian oil, which I also thought was already done, by the way. The U.S. already did that. And also they want Iran's frozen assets released. So, I'm not really sure if Iran's making some of this up. Now, the one thing they're not making up is the war in Lebanon. That is actually still going on. And Israel just launched a brand new ground operation into the area of Nabatea inside of Lebanon just less than 24 hours ago. But of course, in my opinion, it's in defense of Israel. That's what it looks like to me. It was in response to the attacks, the rocket attacks on Israeli territory. So this is what Iran's claiming right here. So clearly, it's not going to be working out well. I think most of us can probably see that have a good brain on our shoulders. But moving on to our next post here, this one's going to go to none other than Flytex News yet again, and also a huge shout out to Flytex, by the way. But right now we're seeing a brand new post from the president, and it does appear that he is in meltdown mode as of this morning about the situation with Iran. So he put out two different posts very shortly apart from one another, and the one right here, the first one, appeared to say, "We did not meet out of desperation. Iran did. They are finished and will play out the 60 days, and they get no money and not 10 cents. So it appears to be that he's saying that they're not going to release any of the funds to Iran that was in the MOU. So that's a big change right there. And then shortly afterward, he said the war has diminished Iran. It doesn't any longer have an air force, a navy, anti-aircraft equipment, radar, or practically anything else. And yet somebody else, of course, has to get political. They say that Iran is now better off than it was 4 months ago. And can you imagine getting away with that? How stupid can some people be? So clearly the president's once again in meltdown mode. It seems to be that's becoming sort of commonplace these days. But he's clearly upset with what's happening with the Iran deal falling apart. I would say that's obvious out of those posts right there. And also, to make matters worse, in our last post here, which goes to open source intel, it does appear that the attacks inside of Lebanon by the Israeli forces is starting to become very, very much more serious. We're seeing that apparently non-stop rocket attacks are taking place on IDF troops, and also not only that, but Israel's also launching very large attacks with missiles into the area of Nabatea and the area of southern Lebanon. So that situation's ramping up, as you can see right here in this picture, and that situation is not going to be ramping down anytime soon. So I would say, in my personal assessment, it's fair to say that the talks are over with and the MOU is largely useless at this point. And it does appear that we called that about 24 hours to 48 hours ago, that it looked like Iran was going to sabotage it. And I would say they have effectively done that as of today. But with that, folks, that is actually our last post of the video. So if you found today's video informative, please smack that like button and also subscribe to the channel as well if you already haven't, to get notified of our daily uploads just like this one, and also our nightly war news streams at 10 p.m. Eastern.
And you don't want to miss tonight's at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time show. We are going to have a wild one for y'all tonight. You don't want to miss all the strikes and the videos and the footage that we have for tonight. It's going to be wild. But that's all the news that we have for y'all for right now. Make sure y'all hit that bell button so y'all get notified when we come on air. And make sure y'all hit that follow and subscribe button depending on what platform you're on. We're on YouTube, Kick, Twitch, and Rumble. So make sure y'all come in, stay tuned to later on.